This video is created for informational purposes only. Everyone mentioned is treated with respect, and no harm or disrespect is intended. Viewer discretion is advised.
Dennis Rader was a vicious killer who led a double life. To most, Rader appeared to be a family man and a pillar of his community. He was a Boy Scout leader and an active member of his church. He also murdered 10 people, including 2 children.
In 2003, Dennis Rader walked his daughter down the aisle. He cried at the altar. He danced. He gave a toast. By every account from everyone in that room, he was a proud, emotional father on one of the happiest days of his life. The venue was Christ Lutheran Church in Park City, Kansas. The same church where 8 years earlier he had carried a woman's body through the back door after midnight, laid her on the floor, and spent the next several hours posing her corpse for photographs. He had been the church council president. He chose that church. He designed that life. The titles, the reputation, the trust, with the same cold patience he applied to everything else. And what makes Dennis Rader one of the most genuinely disturbing cases in American history isn't the body count. It's the fact that he gave himself a name for how he did it. He called it cubing. Keeping 2 completely separate realities running in the same brain at the same time without one ever touching the other. Dennis Rader, church president, a husband, father, compliance officer, and BTK. For 31 years nobody connected them. He was not a man on the margins. He was an Air Force veteran, married and had 2 children. He studied administration of justice at Wichita State University, the field built around understanding how criminals are caught. He absorbed it. He just used it differently than anyone intended. For nearly 15 years he worked for ADT Security Services. That job put him inside strangers' homes with a clipboard and a reason. He mapped layouts, identified vulnerabilities, noted which windows were weak, which doors could be bypassed. His coworkers said his technical diagrams were extraordinary, the most precise, accurate security drawings anyone on the team had seen. Those same drawings, that same handwriting, that same eye for detail, showed up in the crime scene sketches he mailed to police. Nobody made the connection because why would they? He was an installation manager. He was good at his job. When he left ADT, he became a code enforcement officer for the city of Park City, Kansas. He measured people's lawns with a literal tape measure. He filmed the backs of neighbors' houses and cited them for violations. He yelled at staff in front of colleagues, told one subordinate she would never be as smart as him. A neighbor's family described pulling a child out of his Cub Scout troop specifically because of his demeanor. He was so strange, they said. And yet, he helped elderly residents with their yards. He brought food to community events. He was the man you called if you had a problem. He was elected president of his church congregation. His wife Paula was envied by other women at their church for how attentive her husband was. What a devoted, present father he seemed to be. She had no idea she was sleeping next to the man Wichita had been hunting for years. Rader had a term for how he managed all of it. He called it cubing. Forensic psychologist Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who spent years corresponding with him in prison, described it in clinical language: compartmentalization. 2 completely separate realities operating simultaneously with no crossover, no leak, no moment of confusion between them. He saw no contradiction. He genuinely believed he could be both things at once. And at some point during those years he mailed police a photocopy of a book cover. The line printed on it read, "Never kill anyone you know." He was telling investigators directly that the people in his life were never the target. Paula was possibly the safest woman in Wichita. She just didn't know it. Talk to me in the comments. What is it about this man that gets under your skin the most? The titles, the church, the fact that he had an actual name for how he kept the 2 lives from colliding? Because the answer most people give at this point in the story almost always changes by the end. What Rader told investigators about his childhood wasn't a defense. It was almost a boast. By his own account, he was developing bondage and torture fantasies while still in elementary school. By adolescence he was hanging cats from barn beams, watching them struggle, waiting until they stopped, and found it exciting. He admitted it plainly. No apparent discomfort in the telling. He read true crime accounts compulsively, including his father's book about the Lonely Hearts Killers, and masturbated to them. He told Ramsland he used to fantasize about tying women to train tracks. He described driving through neighborhoods, what he called trolling, watching women go about their lives, cataloging them. The fantasies weren't random. They were structured, organized. He was, even as a teenager, building an internal system. When he joined the Air Force in 1966, he would sketch out his bondage fantasies on paper and burn them before changing stations. He had protocol for it. It was managed. By 1974, he had been back in Wichita for several years, married, employed at the Coleman Company. And whatever internal pressure had been building since elementary school had reached a threshold. He had chosen a family. January 15, 1974. Joseph and Julie Otero. Joseph Jr., 9 years old. Josephine, 11. He had worked alongside Julie at Coleman. That was the thread. He had been watching the family, their schedule, their routines, who came and went when the house would be manageable. That morning he cut the phone line. Then he knocked on the door. When Joseph answered, Rader said he was a fugitive who needed food, a car, money to keep moving. He said it calmly because he had rehearsed it. He had also brought everything he needed in a bag. Cord cut from a Venetian blind, hoods, tape, wire cutters. This wasn't impulsive. Every item had been prepared in advance. He killed all 4 of them.
All right, when you went into the house, what happened then?
Well, I confronted the family, pulled a pistol, confronted Mr. Otero, and asked him to, that I was there to, basically, I was wanted to get the car. I was hungry, food, I was wanted, and asked him to lie down in the living room. And at that time, I realized that wouldn't be a really good idea, so the dog was a real problem, so I asked Mr. Otero if he could get the dog out, so he had one of the kids put it out. And then I took him back to the bedroom.
You took who back to the bedroom?
The family, to the bedroom, the 4 members.
All right, what happened then?
At that time, I tied him up.
While still holding him at gunpoint?
Well, in between tying and yes. Yeah.
All right, after you tied them up, what occurred?
Well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened the bonds a couple of times. Tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Apparently had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had him put a pillow down for his head. Had he put I think he's Parker or a coat underneath him. They talked to me about giving the car and whatever money. I guess they didn't have very much money. And there I realized that, I didn't have a mask on or anything. They already could ID me, and made a decision to go ahead and put them down, I guess, or strangle them.
All right, what did you do to Joseph Otero Sr.?
Joseph Otero?
Yeah,
Okay.
Joseph Otero Sr., Mr. Otero, the father.
I put a plastic bag over his head and then some cords and then tightened it.
This was in the bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Did he, in fact, suffocate and die as a result of this?
Not right away. No, sir, he didn't.
What happened?
Well, after that, I did Mrs. Otero. I had never strangled anyone before, so I really didn't know how much pressure you had to put on a person or how long it would take. But
Was she also tied up there in the
yes,
bedroom?
yeah, both her hands and their feet were tied up. She was on the bed.
Where were the children?
Josephine was on the bed, and Junior was on the floor this time.
First of all, put the bag over Joseph Otero's head, and he tore a hole in the bag. Then you went ahead. Did you strangle Mrs. Otero then,
Okay.
or did you go
First
back?
of all, Mr. Otero was strangled, or a bag put over his head and strangled. Then I thought he was going down, and I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero. I thought she was down. Then I strangled Josephine, thought she was down, and then I went over to Junior and put the bag on his head. After that, Mrs. Otero woke back up, and she was pretty upset in what's going on. So I came back, and at that point in time, strangled her for the death strangle at that time.
With your hands or what?
No, with a cord, with a rope. And then I think at that point in time I redid Mr. Otero, put the bag over his head, went over and then took Junior. Before that, she asked me to save her son, so I actually had taken the bag off, and then I was really upset at that point in time. So basically, when Mr. Otero was down, Mrs. Otero was down, I went ahead and took Junior. I put another bag over his head and took him to the other bedroom at that time.
What did you do then?
Put a bag over his head. I put a cloth over his head, a T-shirt, and a bag so he couldn't tear a hole in it. And he subsequently died from that. And then when I went back, Josephine had woke back up.
What did you do then?
And I took her to the basement and eventually hung her.
All right, you hung her in the basement?
Yes, sir.
All right, did you do anything else at that time?
Yes, I had some sexual fantasies. But that was after she was hung.
After killing Josephine's parents and her 9-year-old brother, he took her to the basement. She asked him, "What's going to happen to me?" He told her, "You'll be in heaven with the rest of your family." He hanged her from a sewer pipe. He later referred to her death in his own words as his encore. 3 months later he struck again, this time at the home of 21-year-old Catherine Bright, which he had named Project Lights Out, a dark riff on her surname. He broke in and waited. She didn't come back alone. Her 19-year-old brother Kevin was with her. Rader hadn't planned for that. He gave both of them the same story: wanted fugitive, just needed a car. He bound them in separate rooms. Then Kevin Bright did something Rader had never encountered. He fought. Kevin got close enough to wrestle the gun away. He pulled the trigger. The gun didn't fire. Rader got it back. Shot Kevin once, left the room, came back and shot him a second time. Kevin played dead. When he heard Rader leave the house, he ran. Catherine died at the hospital from her injuries. Kevin survived, the only known person to ever escape Dennis Rader alive. 31 years later, Kevin Bright stood in a Kansas courtroom and said, "My sister suffered so much. No remorse, no compassion, he had no mercy. I think that's what he ought to receive." Most killers go quiet and stay quiet. In October 1974, a letter was found tucked inside an engineering textbook at the Wichita Public Library. The writer described the Otero murders in detail no member of the public could have known. Then he asked for a name. He suggested his own, BTK, a sick name he invented to mean bind, torture, kill. Someone called him floppy disk failure in a comment, and honestly that suits him better. In a later communication he wrote, "How many do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper or some national attention?" That sentence is the master key to this entire case. The murders were never really the point. They were the resume. He wanted to be known. He wanted to matter in a way that ordinary men in ordinary towns rarely do. He kept writing poems, taunting letters. He sent a letter to Cake TV in 1978 suggesting several alternate names for himself: the Wichita Strangler, the Wichita Hangman, the Bondage Strangler, the Garrote Phantom. He was workshopping his own brand. In March 1977 he went to Shirley Vian's home. Her 5-year-old son had been spotted by Rader in the neighborhood. The child was how he found the house. He knocked on the door, claimed to be a private detective, and pushed his way inside. Shirley Vian had 3 small children at home. He told her directly, looked her in the face, that he had a problem with sexual fantasy and would need to tie her up. He locked her children in the bathroom. When they started crying, he put toys and blankets in with them, tied the door shut from the outside, pushed a bed against it. Then he killed their mother. He had intended to kill the children too. The only reason they survived was that a phone rang and the family had been expecting a visitor. He fled. Shirley Vian's 6-year-old son had watched the entire thing through the bathroom keyhole.
I told Miss Diane that I had a problem with sexual fantasies, that I was going to tie her up, and that I might have to tie the kids up, and that she would cooperate with me at that time. We went back. She was extremely nervous. I think she even smoked a cigarette, and we went back to one of the back areas of the porch, explained to her that I had done this before, and I think she would, at that point in time, I think she was sick because she had her night robe on, and I think if I remember right, she had been sick, and I think she came out of the bedroom when I went in the house. So anyway, we went back to her bedroom, and I proceeded to tie the kids up, and they started crying and got real upset. So I said, "Oh, this is not going to work." So we moved them to the bathroom. She helped me, and then I tied the doors shut. We put some toys and blankets and odds and ends in there for the kids, make them as comfortable as we could. We tied one of the bathroom doors shut so they couldn't open it, and she went back and helped me shove the bed up against the other bathroom door. And then I proceeded to tie her up. She got sick, threw up, got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
9 months later, Rader killed Nancy Fox, then walked to a downtown payphone and called police himself to report it.
Yes, you will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing, Nancy Fox.
Gave them her name and address, then hung up. He was running the investigation on his own terms.
Nancy Fox was another one of the projects. When I was trolling the area, I noticed her go in the house one night. Sometimes I would, anyway, I put her down as a potential victim.
Let me ask you one thing, Mr. Rader. You've used that term when you were patrolling the area. What do you mean by that?
It's called stalking or trolling.
So you were not working in any form or fashion.
Well, I don't know if you read much about serial killers, they go through what they call the different phases. That's one of the phases they go through as a trolling stage. You're looking for a victim at that time, and that you could be trolling for months or years. But once you lock in on a certain person, then you become stalking, and that might be several of them. But you really home in on that person. They basically become that's the victim, or that's what you want to be.
Can you tell me what you did on the night of December 8th, 1977?
Now, about 2 or 3 blocks away, I parked my car and walked to that residence. Knocked at the door first to make sure, see if anybody was in there, because I knew she arrived home at a particular time from where she worked. Nobody answered the door, so I went around to the back of the house, cut the phone lines. I could tell that there wasn't anybody in the north apartment. Broke in and waited for her to come home in the kitchen.
All right. Did she come home?
Yes, she did.
What happened?
I confronted her, told her there I had a problem, sexual problems, that I would have to tie her up and have sex with her. She was a little upset. We talked for a while. She smoked a cigarette. While we smoked a cigarette, I went through her purse, identifying some stuff. And she finally said, well, let's get this over with so I can go call the police. And I said, okay. And she said, can I go to the bathroom? And I said, yes. She went to the bathroom and I told her when she came out to make sure that she was undressed. And when she came out, I handcuffed her. And I don't really remember whether... Sir?
You handcuffed her? You had a pair of handcuffs?
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
What happened then?
Well, anyway, I handcuffed her, had her lay on the bed, and then I tied her feet, and then I was also undressed to a certain degree, and then I got on top of her, and I reached over, took either her feet were tied or not tied. But anyway, I think I had a belt. I took the belt and then strangled her with a belt at that time.
After 1979, he chose silence. The letters stopped. The calls stopped. From the outside, the murders appeared to stop. Paula gave birth to Brian in 1975. Carrie in 1978. Rader graduated from Wichita State in 1979. He was coaching scouts, attending church, taking his daughter fishing. His wife was pregnant with Carrie during the years BTK had women in Wichita afraid to be alone in their own homes. She had been sleeping next to him the entire time. But the silence was a disguise. In 1985, his neighbor Maureen Hedge, 53 years old, lived on the same street in Park City, came home from a bingo night with her boyfriend. Rader had named this one project Cookie.
He would see a woman walking and he would say, "She's next."
He strangled her inside her home. Then he transported her body to Christ Lutheran Church, carried her inside and posed her in bondage positions for photographs. He had pre-staged black plastic sheeting at the church in advance. Her body was found 8 days later on the side of a road. Police did not connect it to BTK. A year later came Project Piano. Rader had been watching 28-year-old Vicki Weggerl, a local pianist, after hearing her play. He showed up at her door dressed as a telephone repairman. She let him in. Her 2-year-old son was home. He strangled her, stole her driver's license, and left. 4 years afterward, Vicki's husband Bill was the primary person of interest. Investigators had nothing to suggest otherwise. The man who had actually killed her was filing code violations on people's lawns and taking minutes at church council meetings. Then on January 19, 1991, Rader left a Boy Scout camping trip midway through. He told the others he had forgotten something at home. He drove to the house of 62-year-old Dolores Davis, threw a concrete block through her sliding glass door, strangled her with her own pantyhose, and hid her body under a bridge. Then he drove back to the camping trip. 3 murders spread across 6 years, none of them publicly connected to BTK. The pauses were the camouflage. Each gap made the pattern harder to see. After Dolores Davis, 13 years of silence. People want a clean explanation. He was a genius. Police were incompetent. Luck carried him. None of those are accurate. Rader understood something practical that most killers never do. He gained entry through deception every time. Never force when manipulation was available. He was a fugitive who needed a car. A private detective with a photograph. A telephone repairman. A compliance officer with a clipboard. He had a professional identity that gave him a legitimate reason to be in residential neighborhoods, studying houses, watching routines, logging patterns. His ADT diagrams and his crime scene sketches were drawn by the same hand using the same method. Nobody saw it because nobody had any reason to look at a security installer. He selected victims with no immediately obvious connection to each other, and he named each operation before he carried it out, like military planning. The structure wasn't incidental. It was how he thought. Before the Otero murders, investigators discovered at sentencing, Rader had practiced strangling animals to build his technique. When he later found his hands going numb during strangulations, he used a squeeze ball to strengthen his grip. He trained for it. At home, he kept hundreds of photographs and detailed index cards, cutouts of women from magazines and circulars, annotated with descriptions of the fantasies he intended to act on. In a buried hiding spot in his backyard shed, investigators later found bondage materials and what they described as trophies. No DNA database to cross-reference. No cell towers, no traffic cameras, no digital footprint of any kind. He was operating in the exact era when being completely visible left no trace. That era ended because of a newspaper article. When investigators asked why he came back after 13 years, why, after all that patience, all that discipline, his answer was 3 words. That really stirred it. In January 2004, the Wichita Eagle ran a retrospective for the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders. The headline, BTK Case Unsolved 30 Years Later. He had won. Had never been identified. Had beaten the investigation by living an ordinary life inside the community he was terrorizing. And being treated like history, like something Wichita had survived and moved on from, was apparently the one thing he couldn't sit with. He told investigators he had been kind of bored. Within weeks, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle. Return address, Bill Thomas Kilman. His initials, BTK, a name he had constructed so investigators would recognize it immediately, a coded signature in plain view. Inside, a photocopy of Vicki Weggerl's driver's license, stolen from her home in 1986. Crime scene photographs from her murder. Proof that whoever sent this had been there. Over the next several months he sent 11 communications. Cereal boxes, almost certainly a deliberate echo of serial killer, filled with drawings of bound women, victim souvenirs, crime scene items, poems, personal writings, and chapters from what he called his autobiography. He sent dolls posed to mimic his victims. He sent a Barbie doll hanged from a pipe, staged to recreate exactly what he had done to 11-year-old Josephine Otero in a basement 30 years earlier. He sent an outline he had titled, The BTK Story. He was pitching his own documentary. And then he asked the question that ended everything. Investigators found a note in a cereal box recovered during surveillance of Rader's trash. It read, Can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest. He wanted to know if a floppy disk could be traced back to its sender. Police placed a classified ad in the Wichita Eagle. Rex, it will be okay. That was the answer. Law enforcement publicly telling a man who had spent 30 years communicating directly with investigators, who had called police himself after a murder, who had sent evidence packages to multiple media outlets. You're safe, go ahead. And Dennis Rader, who had outlasted every investigative effort for 3 decades through discipline and patience, trusted them. He sent the disc to Wichita's KEV. Forensic examiner Randy Stone pulled something Rader had no idea existed: metadata embedded in a deleted document. The data identified the last person to modify the file as Dennis. The registered location: Christ Lutheran Church. Investigators cross-referenced: Church Council President, Compliance Officer in Park City, Dennis Rader. Then a court order secured a DNA sample from his daughter through a medical record, obtained without her knowledge, and familial matching compared it against biological material recovered from the Otero crime scene. It matched. 30 years. 10 confirmed victims. Thousands of investigative leads. The break came from a line of metadata inside a file he thought he'd deleted on a disk he sent because a newspaper ad told him it was safe. He wasn't caught by technology he couldn't have anticipated. He was caught by the same force that drove everything from the beginning: the need to be recognized, to stay in communication, to remain the author of the story. That need finally outran 30 years of discipline. Real quick, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, that means you found this video some other way, and I'd rather you didn't have to go looking next time. Hit subscribe. Every case on this channel gets the same treatment this one does. The actual details, not just the surface. February 25, 2005. Rader was driving home from work for lunch. Officers stopped his vehicle in Park City. He was taken into custody and charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. Pastor Michael Clark at Christ Lutheran Church received 4 law enforcement officers with a search warrant for the church's computer. They asked who had access to it. Then they told him quietly that the church council president had been arrested as the BTK Killer. He asked them to repeat it 3 times. The world changed that very moment, he later told his congregation. Paula had been married to Rader for 34 years. She filed for an emergency divorce the day after his confession. The judge granted it that same day, waiving the standard 60-day waiting period, citing extreme emotional distress. She signed everything over to him: the house, retirement benefits, every asset. She has never visited him in prison. To her, the man she knew died the day he was arrested. His daughter Carrie got the news through an FBI agent at her door. Do you know who BTK is? You mean the person wanted for murders in Kansas? Your dad has been arrested as BTK. She had been married for 18 months. She had no idea what her father was. The man who had walked her down the aisle at Christ Lutheran Church, the building where he had once carried a murder victim's body for a photo shoot, was the killer who had haunted Wichita since she was an infant. In June 2005, Rader stood in court and described each of his 10 murders in sequence. Calmly, clinically. He called them his projects. He told the judge he had tracked his victims like a predator. When asked why he had done any of it, he offered a term he had invented: Factor X. A force inside him, he said, that he couldn't explain and couldn't stop. Something like a demon. Something not entirely his fault. Nancy Fox's sister stood up in that courtroom and said, "Nancy's death is like a deep wound that will never ever heal. This man needs to be thrown in a deep dark hole and left to rot." At sentencing, prosecutors displayed photographs Rader had taken of himself, hanging from a tree, lying in a grave, tied to a chair wearing a mask and a blonde wig, bound and wearing a dress he had taken from Dolores Davis's home. He had been recreating his crimes on his own body. August 2005. Dennis Rader was transported to El Dorado Correctional Facility. 10 consecutive life sentences. A minimum of 175 years without possibility of parole. He will not be eligible for release until 2180. But the sentencing didn't close what most people assume it closed. After his arrest in 2005, Rader told investigators something police suppressed entirely and kept from the public for 11 years. He had a next victim. A woman in Wichita, and he had been watching her. He had a very sick plan. He was going to hang her upside down in her home. He planned to do it in the spring of 2005. He was arrested in February. Police hid her identity for over a decade because they feared the psychological impact of the revelation. Forensic psychologist Catherine Ramsland, who worked directly with Rader in prison, confirmed through their correspondence that he had maintained a list of more than 50 potential victims, people he had observed, catalogued, and tracked over the years without ever acting. 50 people who had no idea they were being watched by the man enforcing their city ordinances. And 10 confirmed victims is what the court proved. But investigators working this case have never been fully convinced that's where it ends. In 2023, the Osage County Sheriff's Office in Oklahoma publicly named Rader as the prime suspect in the disappearance of 16-year-old Cynthia Dawn Kinney, a cheerleader last seen leaving a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma on June 23, 1976. The connection: Rader was working for ADT at the time, and a bank directly across the street from that laundromat was having a security system installed. He had been in that town on that street for work. In his personal journals, investigators found an entry about a planned attack at a laundromat. He had named it Project Bad Wash Day. Then investigators went back through the word puzzle Rader had sent to local media in 2004, the one everyone had already analyzed, and found what they believe are the words Cindy and Kinney hidden in the grid, along with the name of the street in Pawhuska where she disappeared. He had been embedding confessions inside taunts. In plain view. For years. Cynthia Kinney has never been found.
But tonight, investigators say 78-year-old Dennis Rader could be responsible for 2 more killings.
Do you think the number could be even higher?
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Oklahoma's Osage County Sheriff's Office recently unearthed new evidence at the serial killer's former home, including victims' personal effects.
A pair of pantyhose that are tied in a knot.
Investigators believe Rader used those pantyhose to bind a victim's hands or feet together. Perhaps, they say, Cynthia Kinney, a 16-year-old who was last seen at a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma in 1976. Rader writing in a journal entry around the same time that laundromats were a good place to watch victims and dream.
We read from cover to cover his journals, and he left all kinds of clues in there.
Rader's daughter has been volunteering as an active agent, Carrie Rawson even visiting her father for the first time in 18 years as part of those efforts.
Was there anything that you wanted to get off your chest after nearly 2 decades?
I could have gone in there sad. I could have gone in there, shell-shocked. But I went in there very focused on trying to get answers for Cynthia Kinney's family.
In August 2023, the Osage County Sheriff's Office excavated Rader's former Park City property and recovered what they described as items of interest, including trophies from at least one woman and bondage materials, from a hiding spot buried under the floor of his backyard shed. A 2008 letter Rader himself wrote from prison had described where he buried things. Investigators then announced he had disclosed additional locations where more trophies were hidden. He had been managing what people could find even from a prison cell. Around that same time, 2 investigators visited him. One from Missouri, one from Kansas, asking about Shauna Garber, a woman strangled in Kansas on Halloween 1990, whose remains were found in Missouri a month later. Her identity wasn't confirmed until DNA testing in 2021. And in 2024, a newly uncovered journal entry suggested Rader may have abused his daughter Carrie when she was too young to have any memory of it. She confronted him in prison that year, her 5th visit since his arrest. He gave her almost nothing.
She had not seen her father since 2005. Not only does she describe the condition he was in, but also the way he told her something that got her thinking.
I go, "Is it 10, Dad?" And he goes, 10. And he rolls at 0.
Carrie Rawson recently asked her father, Dennis Rader, known as serial killer BTK, directly if he killed more than 10 people. She explains how she interpreted the role of the 0.
And now I'm thinking, good God, man, how many times are you rolling that 0? Because I think you're trying to tell me it's more than 10.
After 18 years behind bars and convicted of killing 10 people, there's still a human element to Rader.
He was literally sobbing. He reached out for me. He hugged me. He kissed me. And I said, "Hey, what do you think happened to Garber?" And it was like that dad mask came off, and it was like BTK.
Rawson doesn't believe her father.
It's not Dad claiming these. He is telling me directly that he didn't do these, and he's dodging. He's making up alibis. He's lying to my face.
When investigators found evidence at her family's former Park City home, Ralston says her father was speechless.
Interestingly enough, guys, he has not said one word since we dug up his precious yard. I think that's pretty telling. Like, I think he's shocked into muteness after 50 years.
He has spent his entire life deciding what other people are allowed to know. A cell in Kansas did not change that. Dennis Rader walked his daughter down the aisle. He attended church every week. He sat in city council chambers and filed zoning reports. He knocked on neighbors' doors and cited them for having a trash cart visible from the road. He coached children. He installed alarm systems in people's homes. He fished with his kids and helped elderly neighbors with their yards. And a year before he was caught, a former Wichita news director said something on record that turned out to be the most accurate description anyone had offered in 30 years. He told us it was easy. After he killed someone, he just assumed his rightful place in the world. He is a person who has been walking in that community, hiding in the loudest possible place, right in front of everyone. Cynthia Dawn Kinney's family still doesn't have answers. Neither do the families connected to the cases in Missouri and Kansas that are still being investigated. Dennis Rader is sitting in a cell in Kansas right now, 80 years old, and he is still deciding what to tell. Share this video, genuinely, not as a formality. These investigations are open. These families are waiting. More eyes on this case means more pressure stays on it, and that matters. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think the real number is. Tell me which project name hit differently. Tell me if any of this changes how you look at the people around you, because if this case does anything, it should.